Um, Hello. We seem to be having some technical difficulties. We're going to ask if any of you who are currently watching, if you can hear us at all, because it looks like we have a terrible connection. Can you guys hear us? Please let us know if this is getting through at all. Okay, we got a yes from Joanne. Thanks, Joanne. All's well. Okay. Because did the intermittently, okay. Did the video choked. Our intro countdown choked. Or at least it seemed to be. Okay. As you know what? It's showing that the connection is coming in and out. We don't know what it could be. Well, we'll carry on and we'll see how things progress. If it if it gets really bad, you guys will have to let us know, and then we'll see how it. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and we'll see how things go. We don't know what it could be. We don't have uh, unless there's some weird thing happening in the background that we don't know about, which is a possibility. After all, it's Windows. So we tried closing down every uh, superfluous window and program, and so we'll see how things go. Okay, so welcome, and that's an unfortunate beginning to today's live stream, but it is what it is. We are sharing you the link now. If although, well, here's the link. Although today we don't know how wise it would be to actually try to jump on the screen, because it really is. It's coming in and out. Um, so it's probably maybe not the best of days to try to hop on the live stream. But anyway, we shared the link in the chat, so it's there. Well, this is slightly unfortunate based on what some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about today and wanted to show you, but it might be not possible to show you stuff because of the technical difficulties. But welcome anyway, and we're glad to have you here. And today was a topic which was, we don't want to say recommended, because it wasn't recommended. It just came up. And it's something that serendipitously happened to reveal itself to us again last night, after we had posted that we were going to be talking about this live stream. We decided that we would watch, as Azil says, that the connection has been stolen by aliens. So we don't think that's the case, but thanks for that input. We watched Disney's Moana last night, and if you're not familiar with it, it was from 2016. It's a computer animated musical film that Disney made, and it's actually, there's a lot of esoteric symbolism in it as it relates to humanity in the Kali Yuga, and a humanity that is landlocked, as it were. We are trapped on this planet, and despite our best efforts to make headway into space, the fact of the matter is that we're not permitted to get very far. And the reason why we're not permitted to do so is because we are we're sick, we're quarantined, we're a fallen humanity. And people don't realize, the materialists, the scientists, don't realize what it actually requires to be able to be a space-faring humanity. And it requires much more than physical rockets and these mechanical attempts at sending probes and whatnot out into deep space. Humanity is just not ready for space. Not only is humanity not ready for space, humanity in general is not ready for first contact. Because those humanities who are capable of coming to visit us, those are enlightened humanities. They do not have the same issues that we do. They do not have, on average, the percentage of ego that we do. They are at most 10% ego. And this humanity is on average 97, 98% ego. That's a huge discrepancy. And if one doesn't appreciate or comprehend the nature of that discrepancy and the implications of that discrepancy, then there's barely any point in continuing the conversation. We are to other humanities as the most primitive of cultures on this planet are to us. But even more than that, more like an ant colony or something. Because that's how mechanical we are by comparison. And so when people wonder why, other species haven't made contact with us. Well, they have made contact with us, number one. They just have not, the contact that they have made, the contact that we have with them is on a very limited basis. But rest assured that the moment this humanity started testing nuclear weapons, that moment, other humanities around the cosmos began taking a great interest in the goings-on on this planet. And the moment that the United States dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, ending the Second World War and bringing about the Cold War with the Soviets, that shortly after that incident, what some people refer to as the Galactic Federation of Enlightened Humanities decided envoys to contact the leadership in the highest echelons of the US government, and possibly also the Soviet government, but we don't know that for sure. So the US government knows about UFOs. They call them UAPs now, of course. Unknown aerial phenomena, I guess, is what, as opposed to unidentified flying object. The reason why they have to change these things, who knows? But they were warned, and if there's a reason why nuclear weapons haven't been used since Hiroshima and Nagasaki in any conflict anywhere in the world, it's most likely because of the intervention of the Enlightened Humanities, who made the powers that be aware that the use of nuclear weapons will not be tolerated, and that unless they dismantle them, there's the use of nuclear weapons will not be tolerated in the galactic community because the effects of nuclear explosions are far-reaching, are wide and far-reaching, and affect humanities throughout the galaxy, let alone our solar system. This so-called physical universe that we perceive is an illusion. Reality is fourth dimensional. The three-dimensional universe that we experience is a projection. It's all just a mental projection. And the nature of the fourth dimension is that it is beyond the 0 point. And if you meditate on this at great length and contemplate it and see the nature of reality and all the interlaced nature of the multidimensional universe, comprehending the interconnection, interwoven nature of it all, and energy and vibration, you will know that a disruption on the level of a nuclear blast that's happening, we see the physical effects, but the actual energetic cause of those physical effects have their um, they have their corresponding effects in the higher dimensions, specifically the fourth dimension. And as a result of that, they affect reality, that because the fourth dimension is the foundation of reality, they affect the foundation of reality throughout the galaxy. Why is this important? Well, let's just take just for a moment. If we understand that, let's put a point here and call this the 0 point. Projecting out from here is what we perceive as 3D reality, but it's a projection. On the other side of that 0 point, we have a corresponding plane of existence. And the way this works is these projections are like, we drew them as cones here, but we could very easily draw them something like that, and then across these points. So to put this another way, this cone collapses again into every 0 point, right? Like being focused by a lens. And then on the other side of that, we have another expanse. We call that 5D, right? But these points are coincident. And if the points are coincident, that these what we're calling cones here, for lack of a better word, these projections are also coincident. They overlap, which means anything that you do of a fundamental quantum activity. So, for example, a nuclear explosion don't exist as physical phenomena. So you create, you know, mushroom cloud because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. On this side of the zero and all the physical destruction and everything else that happens, but on the fourth dimensional energetic mental plane, et cetera, that this event has its consequences. And because of that, the ongoing continued testing and use of nuclear weapons is essentially, again, for lack of a better name, by the Galactic Federation of Enlightened Humanity, something of that nature. But really, it's the Brotherhood of the White Lodge. We can't go, that kind of havoc, that kind of destruction, because it has far-reaching effects of other humanities. These are enlightened humanities that are incapable of war, certainly among themselves. And they're certainly incapable of coming and enslaving and invading and all these other ridiculous fantasies that people project onto aliens. That somehow humanity is a race of animals in an alien zoo, or there's all kinds of nonsense that people come up with. And their deepest, darkest fears, they project on to alien species. And that's why we have so many alien invasion movies in Hollywood and whatnot. Because the ego does what it always does. It creates an other, and then it projects onto that other all of its worst sins to take our attention off of it, to fear and to want to control and want to go to war with. And so as a result of this, the extraterrestrials have been in touch with those in the highest echelons of the US government and military for a number of years now. That information is kept secret because knowledge is power. And those who have knowledge don't want to lose, like the intelligence community doesn't want to lose the power and privilege that they have being in possession of that power. Now, the other thing, of course, and I think this is what Joanne is mentioned here in her comment, which says the military-industrial complex is an embarrassment to humanity, in my opinion. Pure ego, first strike, perpetual war, and weaponizing every tech profiteering mentality. Okay, that's not what. Okay, so she was on about something else. The military-industrial complex is in possession of alien technology, and they keep it secret. There are private contractors and companies like Lockheed Martin and the other major players in the military-industrial complex who have access, limited access, but it's compartmentalized. And they're each working on different aspects. Nobody is given access to all of the alien technology. And the reason why they're not is because someone who gets access to all of it has the potential of putting it all together and walking away with that knowledge and selling it to the highest bidder, or at least that's the way the military-industrial complex thinks. That's the way the government and the people in power think, is that this technology would be too powerful, falling into the wrong hands. And so what they do is they compartmentalize so that nobody has access to the full picture. And this is their attempt at, so if there are leaks of information, then maybe this silo will leak or that silo will leak, but it's very unlikely that all the silos will leak. Right? It went into the building of the Titanic, right? So if you can create these compartments in a ship, and the water only fills up with so many compartments that the ship will stay afloat. Unfortunately, they didn't build them high enough, so the water overflowed into the other compartments. But that's another story. Joanne says, ego, not being ready for contact with enlightened humanities was the context. Yeah, no, for sure. The fact of the matter is the military industrial complex does have access to alien technology. So they are by proxy in contact with aliens because they're in contact. And they're constantly having essentially dogfights with them in the air and whatnot, because and you're constantly hearing rumors about alien ships that have been shot down and all kinds of nonsense. The military industrial complex just desperately wants to get their hands on alien technology. But the reality is they will never, ever decipher it or figure it out. For this reason, Joanne, that you mentioned, this reason and this reason alone, because of their ego. Ego is antithetical to true science. The real science is not physical. It's not physics. It's not. There is no gravity. Gravity is made up. Gravity doesn't exist. Neither does time. Time is an illusion of ego. Now, gravity is not an illusion. We experience what we experience as gravity is real. It has nothing to do with what Einstein said it was, that the bending of space-time and all that nonsense. They talk about the weak force and the strong force and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there is no physicality. Materiality doesn't exist. Gravity is a line item in code. It's like all the laws of physics. They're just laws that apply to this level of reality. But there's no physicality there. There's no mass. So they built the Large Hadron Collider looking for the particle that gives matter mass. But there are no particles. Would you look inside a virtual reality system looking for the particle in that virtual reality that gives mass to everything in that virtual reality? There's no mass. Anything that you experience in that virtual reality is programming, essentially. It's code. And the code doesn't exist in the reality, it exists outside reality. But that whole of the virtual reality is energy. We know that. Look at alien technology, what they're doing in a compartmentalized way. They're trying to decipher and see how this stuff works. And they think, well, it creates a gravity bubble and a gravity well and this and that. You hear them talk about all kinds of ways of trying to contextualize fourth dimensional science using the language and the paradigm of physical science, of materialist science. But to travel the cosmos requires metaphysical science. Sure, in theory, you can take a tin can and put it on top of a rocket and shoot it into space. And you can send pieces of junk flying through the galaxy. You can put computers and radios on them and dishes, and you can send digital signals and blah, 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 like we do when we send rovers to Mars and this and that and the other thing. But to actually be a spacefaring humanity, we must have access, we must be knowledgeable of the metaphysical foundations of the universe, because that's the only way in which to be a spacefaring race. And this relates to what we were saying about yesterday when we watched Moana, because Moana is all about a seafaring race and how this seafaring race lost their capacity to be wayfinders and travel the ocean. So they're landlocked on their little island. And in order to regain their capacity to be wayfinders, they Moana has to go on this quest out of Tafiti, and we wanted to show you clips from the movie or whatever. Well, we might be able to. We have difficult showing clips, obviously, for copyright reasons, but we might show you a few keyframes from the film to suggest how it relates to the topic of today. You might be familiar with the Moai on Easter Island, which is far from Hawaii and yet related to Hawaii. In fact, in the film Moana, Moana herself, her island is named after an island on Easter Island. Now, this is really laggy. I mean, I click something on the screen and it takes 3 seconds yards today. But here on the this is Easter Island, and here there's a presumably one of these 4 little islands. One of them is called Matanui, and this is actually the island that Moana comes from in the film. So they took the name of her island, Matanui, and the heads on Easter Island, these are called the Moai. And the demigod that Moana goes on her adventure with, his name is Maui. Now, of course, Maui is one of the names of the Hawaiians. Their legend created islands and gave people fire and so on and so forth. But Moai and Maui are like, there's a relationship that's very similar. And these Moai, Easter Island, this island and these statues are remnants of Lemuria. Lemuria was a great. If Atlantis was the great Atlantic civilization, which sank into the Atlantic Ocean, before Atlantis, it was Lemuria. And Lemuria occupied the Pacific Ocean. And so remnants of Lemuria exist, and one of them is Easter Island. And the Moai statues are a remnant of the Lemurian civilization. And in Lemuria, that civilization was on the way to becoming a fully enlightened humanity. If not, they were ships and all manner of technology that even the Atlanteans didn't have. and that's all accounted in the sense the great Hindu epics, the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Bhagavad. We're not going to be able to pronounce that today for some bizarre reason. Bhagavad Gita. Anyway, so the thing about that film, yeah, yeah, thank you, Stuart. It helps for us to be able to read it, right? Uh, the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you. We're not doing all that well ourselves, okay? So, but that's another story. We don't want to get all of you guys bogged down in our troubles. But suffice it to say, the technical glitches that we are experiencing today are probably an externalized manifestation of what's going on in here and in here. So, regardless, our humanity fell during the Lemurian epoch, and we lost many capacities when that happened. And one of them was the capacity that we were developing to be able to be a spacefaring humanity. But many aliens at that time, we had contact with them. So this whole thing about ancient aliens, there is something to that. Although all the theories around them are a little bit um, hyperbolic and a lot of speculation. But we had contact with other humanities during the Lemurian epoch because we had not yet fallen. And we were on the road to becoming a spacefaring humanity ourselves, an enlightened humanity, in other words. But and like Moana's village, her people that lost they hid their ships away, and they swore that they were never going to go on the ocean again. And this is all related to Maui taking the heart of Tafiti in the movie. But they become landlocked on their little island of Matanui, which of course is off the coast of Easter Island. And Moana has to restore the heart of Tafiti, and she's called to the ocean. Right? There's those beautiful songs about the ocean calling her, etc., etc. And she has to follow her intuition, and her heart is always pulling her to go past the reef and into the wide unknown, the wide expanse of the ocean. And in many ways, for us, when we look up at the sky, we look up at the stars at night. And anybody who's ever been a stargazer or amateur astronomer or anything of the kind, very much for many, many people in this humanity, it calls to them that great, epic unknown, that incredible expanse out there, up there. And it calls to them very, very strongly, just like it calls to Moana. But the reality is that there's only one, but that, like the film, there's only one way to be able to restore humanity, nation, or an ocean-faring nation, an ocean-faring people, a people of wayfind, reverse the rot that is overtaking the world and all the other stuff that's allegorized in the film. And that is, we have to restore the heart of Tafiti. And what's very interesting is the heart of Tafiti is this emerald gemstone that has these spirals on them. And in the final scenes of the film, we're not going to make this big. Hopefully, you'll be able to see it. Um, she comes to the realization that Tafiti, to restore the heart of Tafiti, but Tafiti's missing. The island's gone, but this giant lava demon that they've been fighting, Moana makes this discovery about the giant demon that they've been fighting. This giant flaming lava demon that they've been fighting is Kali. Stole the heart of the Divine Mother, of Divine Mother Tafiti, and brought about the rot, which they've been living with, that has been trapping humanity on an island of this earth, preventing us having. And we forgot how to be wayfarers, a seafaring people, a spacefaring people. We became landlocked on our little island in the universe. And now again, we face terrible form. And Moana realizes that when they stole the heart of divine nature, and it was lost, that's when we've been living in hell ever since, and a landlocked, landlocked people. Look at art, and she sees those spirals, and she knows where the heart of Tafiti needs to be restored. Oops. We can't get a. She holds up the heart, and we're gonna skip ahead where the ocean parts, allowing the demon to come to Moana. And she's singing. These are all spoilers, obviously, but this is where they have the realization of what's going on and who she is and so on and so forth. And so she restores the heart, and you see the spiral form of the alm of life. And the Kali Yuga crumbles away. And the Divine Mother is restored. But it's the alm of life that does it. The alm of life, the creative and destructive brought into balance, restored, so that mechanical nature and divine nature become one again. And a new golden age springs up. And it's a new golden age that's topped off by the village returning to the seas and becoming a seafaring people once more, restoring to them their birthright. This is an allegory, brothers and sisters, for what awaits humanity in Golden Age, when we can once again realize our potential to be a spacefaring people, a spacefaring humanity, an enlightened humanity. The key is, literally the key that she inserts is the alm of life. We were in Lemuria. We are so moved by the task which has been appointed to us. Because we know the birthright. We knew humanity when they were and we are here armed with the heart of Tafiti, the objective truth, the spiral power of Aum. And if you think all of this is just hearsay and conjecture or opinion or what have you, we would point out only, why can't we make this smaller? Oh, God. Okay, we'll do it this way. We would point this out to you. Moana spelled backwards as Anaum. Because you know that Aum is A-O-U-M. That's how you say it. That's how you pronounce it. Even this. It's Aum. It's not Aum. It's Aum. And Moana is An Aum. There's more. In other words, there's more to who we are and why we're here. Attlas Salux, than just helping people awaken or building an ark for humanity or any of that stuff. We're here to help restore humanity to its birthright. And that birthright is to be an enlightened humanity. It is spacefaring humanity, like Moana's village. Their birthright was to be a seafaring people again. And the way that they do that is Moana and Aum restores the heart of Te Fiti and transmutes the Kali Yuga. And the new golden age is born. And humanity is once again a seafaring people, a spacefaring people, finding their way by the stars. And of course, Moana does this great feat, this great task with the help of Maui, who's a demigod. We don't have Maui's muscles, that's for damn sure. But we don't have the muscles necessarily. And we don't have the tattoos, that's also for sure. Mugaboo says, Moana in my language means child. Well, we're all the children of Alux, so and this humanity is still in its infancy. But we're here to help restore the heart of Te Fiti, the heart of the Divine Mother, and empower that spiral again for the sake of humanity, the alm of life. And if you have found yourself called to that great expanse, perhaps you've tuned in today because of the title. Can you guys hear that phone ringing in the background? We apologize for that. We have no control over that. We give you this whole background in order to provide a context. If you're here today and you're interested, you want to know how to make contact, you must comprehend the backstory, the situation. And you must know why you want to contact or be contacted by members of other humanities, enlightened humanities. Well, Benjamin said he couldn't hear the phone. Well, that's good. That's good then. I shouldn't have mentioned anything. Our noise canceling microphone is better than we thought it was. If you can meditate and self-reflect and dig deep within yourself and find the reason why you should be contacted, why you should have the privilege of meeting a member of an enlightened humanity who has traveled across space to be here for the sake of humanity, our suffering and degenerated humanity, who's not ready en masse to have action. But why are you ready? What makes you ready for that interaction? What makes you special? Why you in particular? You need to have an answer to that question. You need to know why you want to make contact with an enlightened humanity. And you need to comprehend that that reason needs to align with the actions and the knowledge of an enlightened humanity. You have to be able to make your case, and your case must be in alignment with an enlightened being, a being who is able to materialize or dematerialize at will. A being who is not hypnotized and mesmerized by the three-dimensional physical universe. That's how they traverse space. Not in, hundreds of years, because they have the secrets of the 0 point, of the higher dimensions, of non-locality, of non-physical. And with that knowledge, people, we won't say it's easy. It's not easy. It's not child's play by any stretch of the imagination. But it is also not rocket science. Because you don't need rockets. You don't need rockets. You only need rockets if you are trapped on this island, and you're trapped in the island of physicality, because the real island is three-dimensional reality. The real island that we're trapped on, that we're landlocked on, is land itself, physicality, our hume, being trapped in our hume, being trapped in our physical material vessel and our five senses, and believing we have any concept whatsoever as to the nature of reality. We don't. Simply, we don't. No matter what you believe or what you think, or even I can draw all the hand-drawn facsimiles of different dimensions interweaving and all that kind of stuff. We can draw diagrams like this all day. It wouldn't make a lick of difference to our understanding, our comprehension of what it actually means to be able to traverse from one of these to the other, back and forth at will, or to be able to create ships that can traverse the universe in those higher dimensions when we are trapped, locked, landlocked. So put yourself in the shoes of an enlightened being, of a Buddha, of a member of humanity who has gone on a journey to come here to observe this planet and to provide assistance to those who ask for it and are worthy to receive it. Now, how do you go about asking for it, and how do you go about receiving it? If you live in a city and you live in an apartment or a house or wherever you are in a city, recognize that no one is going to come visit you there. How can they? It's just not feasible. It's not practical. If you have a lucid dream, or they can perhaps make contact with you. Did he really want to go into the lunar astral plane to try to make contact with someone? Is that even possible? Or is it a violation of some kind? A violation of a law that we're not familiar with? In the same way that, it's not kosher to go and project into the astral plane and go and spy on other people because it's just not, it's impolite. So how are they going to make contact with you if you're surrounded by others who are not ready to see what it is that you be able to situate yourself in a place that is relatively remote, and you have to be able to situate yourself where you can be available to be contacted in a way where your extraterrestrial correspondence won't be subject to crowds of people and lights and, you know police and all, and people with cell phones and cameras and all the rest of it, right? So you need to be able to situate yourself in a place where and make contact with you in a way where it's safe, where they are safe. And they won't be contaminating everybody else with their presence. These are some of the practical things that have to be taken into consideration. But where do you go? Where do you situate yourself? And when? Every night? And if you currently live in a city, is that practical? So the first way to make contact is through meditation or through astral projection, because they will be able to contact you that way. You can they Extraterrestrials communicate telepathically when you speak. So if you go into meditation, you can use visualization and telepathy to reach out to them. And you can do this as or via or through your higher self. And it's probably a good idea to do it that way. And express your longing to meet with them and learn from them for the sake of suffering humanity. But if you're not pure, or at least you're not working on yourself, if you're filled with lots of ego, as we all are, and lots of desires, and your plan is to write about your experiences or videotape or whatever and record your experience and write a blog about it or write a book about it, or create some sort of sensational whatever about it. So you have to know why you want to make contact. You have to have a reason, and the reason can't be because I want to know if they exist. That's not a reason to satisfy intellectual curiosity, to satisfy. That's not a reason. And you need to be able to express that reason telepathically in meditation and visualization. You must be able to put these enlightened beings, put their minds at ease, put their minds at rest, that you are not going to cause them any harm, or that you're not going to exploit them in any way for your own personal gain. In fact, if it was our activity, we would put ourselves at the service of these enlightened humanities. We would say that whatever it is that you are hoping to achieve for the sake of our suffering humanity, we offer ourselves as a participant and a servant to that mission. Maybe we can help in some way, or we would like to help in some way. We would like to know and understand what it takes to be an enlightened humanity, and we would like to be able to take that knowledge and world in order to prepare us and help prepare those individuals, not everybody, but those individuals who are qualified to be chosen as seeds for the next humanity. When the spacefaring potential of humanity is tested again and may pass the test, and we may, like Moana's village, return to the seas, return to our destiny of wayfinding in the stars. If you are truly meant to make contact with enlightened beings from other worlds, your innermost being, your divine mother, will help you, will guide you. So follow your heart. We can only give you, we can give you the background, we can give you the context, we can give you the overview. And we can give you some guidelines. But the specifics are going to come down to two factors: your own innermost being and the enlightened beings themselves. Because if you are able to impress them, impress is not the right word. It's so difficult. It really is difficult trying to get inside the head of an enlightened being when all we're used to is being inside the head of an intellectual hominid, right? All we're used to is our humanity. Trying to be able to conceptualize and see the universe, enlightened being from another world, it's challenging. They have no need to be impressed. That's not what they're looking for. It's not a job application. But if you have an ability to make an impression, a positive connection, and a heartfelt bond of friendship, and are willing to have tremendous amounts of patience while you await a response, and if you are willing to take the time in meditation to communicate with them and leave space for them to respond to, if it is part of your journey, you have that contact, then you will be contacted. And it is very likely they will let you know where you need to go and when you need to go there to have a rendezvous with them. That is between you and your innermost being and the enlightened beings from the other world. But this is really all it takes. This is not a question of, chance. This is not a question of statistics. This is not a question of being outside, and it's not a numbers game. Oh, if I get them at the right day and the right, cycle of the moon, or who knows what. There's nothing mechanical here except for being very, very, very practical. And you have to keep in the back of mind, if you're familiar with Star Trek, they had this thing called the Prime Directive, which is non-interference. So anytime any member of the Federation studied a more primitive humanity, they had to do so in secret, so that humanity wouldn't know that they're being watched, or wouldn't uh, um, their natural progress wouldn't be tempered with, um, contaminated by the higher Federation. So there's something very similar going on, but it's also a question of protection. It's also a question of preventing hysteria and all sorts of other negative fallout, which would come about if those who are not ready to make contact would make contact or have contact as a result of you not taking the precautions necessary. So rest assured that those beings are very, very, very practical, and they know what their responsibilities are to the Galactic Federation of Enlightened Humanities and to our humanity. And they know what some of the consequences are when, now, mistakes happen, accidents happen, things happen. There are reports of alien vessels which have crashed, et cetera, et cetera. You know them. There's lots of conspiracies around Roswell and everything else, and that, but we also know perhaps there are alien vessels, as we said, UFOs, which have been recovered, which people are working on reverse engineering the technology. But from our point of view, given the work that we are here to do, we're here to help humanity restore and recover what it lost. We're here to help Moana restore the heart of Tafiti and put humanity back on the upward trajectory, back towards becoming an enlightened humanity. Now, we will not become an enlightened humanity, this humanity, but we can plant the seeds in pockets, get pockets of humanity shifting in consciousness and awareness and direction, in perspective, so that once the Kali Yuga ends and Mother Nature returns to the life-giving status she does at the end of the film, and a new golden age springs up, then, only then, does Moana's village once again return to the sea. And it's only in the next humanity, that humanity will have a chance of once again becoming a spacefaring people, spacefaring humanity. Restore the heart of Tafiti in the middle of the Kali Yuga, right? In the middle of that, we have to face that lava monster, all of us inside of ourselves. And it is from that perspective that we feel you will have your best chance of making contact that you are a part of that process. You want to be a part of that transformative process of restoring this humanity back, getting it back on track towards becoming an enlightened human. In other words, on the evolutionary spiral of the Alm of Life, not the devolutionary one that we are currently on. Make your case. Pray to your innermost being. Pray to your divine mother. Watch Moana. If you do whatever it is you need to do that you think will put you in the, let's say, frame of mind, in the right energetic place, in the right place of consciousness, in order to make your case, make your plea, and visualize and try to connect telepathically to them. You may not get a response, or it may be that you're getting a response, you just don't know how to receive it because your mind is not quiet enough, or you're not giving them enough time or space in order to give you a response. It may be that you'll get a response in a dream. It may be you'll get a response in some other way. Or maybe you will receive no response at all. Maybe because who knows how many people pray or try to connect telepathically with aliens. We have no numbers on that. All we know is that there are people who do this on a regular basis. And that if you approach this enterprise with a good heart, an open mind, and a free and giving and loving way, they'll have no particular reason to mistrust you or to doubt or to question your intentions. But you do have to know why you want to do this. And you also have to recognize that they can read minds, that you can't hide. If you have any ill intentions whatsoever, or if you have any self-serving, egotistical, you can't hide from them. You're not going to pull one over on them. So unless your heart is pure in the matter, and unless you really do need, to contact them, it's very likely it's not going to happen, no matter how hard you try or how hard you want it to. Because if it's not meant to, if you're not supposed to, then you won't. Which is why we didn't entitle today's live stream, "This is the year you will make contact." No, we posted it as a question. Is this the year you make contact? Well, it's not up to us. It's also really not up to you. You have to be okay with that. You can't be attached, and you can't allow yourself to become identified, because that's just going to come off as ego desperation, and they have no time, or they have no time for that. It's not that they have no patience for that. Is that why would they start? Why would they entertain someone who's desperate to have a close encounter? What would be the point of that? both for them and for yourself. We don't know if there's anything else that you might be interested in asking or knowing on this particular topic, because we're not sure what else we can share at this point. Because, oh, well, okay, well, we mentioned the astral plane. You have the option, if you can muster up enough energy, if you are able to travel in the astral plane, you can always ask to go visit their planet. You could ask to project to the far side of the moon, the dark side of the moon, and see what activities might be going on there of an alien nature. Because our information is that the the far side of the moon is a kind of a spaceport type situation, where by other humanities coming to observe us and assist us can basically be on the far side of the moon and remain relatively hidden, relatively undetected. So you might want to project there and see what's going on there, or project to go and just ask, take me to the planet of the Greys or whatever. So that's another option. But the likelihood of you actually being able to make contact that way is very slim. And Joanne makes a good point here, is that anytime we project in the astral plane, we must always beware that we are not of pure consciousness, which means that at any time we can slip from the solar astral plane to the lunar astral plane. So we all must always uh, have a healthy skepticism as to whatever we're experiencing while we're projecting in the astral plane, because it might not be 100% reality, or it could be that it's being subjected to or conditioned by our own subjective subconscious mind. Like when we dream, like nobody would ever assume that what experienced in a dream was real, right? So when you have a lucid dream, yes, it's more real and you are awake, but it's not, you're still not awakened, you're still not fully awake. You're just having a moment of clarity in a lucid dream. In terms of being contacted with them, and how do you discern, like, just your own fantasy from their voice? Imagination is real, Joanne. So when you say imagination is fertile, how does imagination comes from the higher self? So I think you're referring to fantasy. There's a difference, right? Imagination is real. We don't know how else to express it. Fantasy is basically imagination that's conditioned by ego. That's called fantasy. In esoteric terms, imagination, the word itself, it simply means imaging, the perceiving, perception. That's all imagination is. It's the ability to perceive and visualize that which is. So, how do you discern the voice, their voice, from one of your voices, or the voice inside of one of your ego's voices, the voice in your head, whatever? In the same way that you discern the still soft voice. But it's much more likely that the telepathic communication that you will experience is very distinct and unique from what you're used to. Could it be a fabrication of your mind? It could be. That's always a risk. That's always a danger. Let's make no mistake about that. However, they know that. They know what our limitations are. And they know where the traps are. So they will take steps to make it as abundantly clear as possible. Let's put it that way. So if right now you are not imagining, if you're not fantasizing about or hearing voices of aliens or seeing aliens or hallucinating aliens in your life, what makes you think you're going to start anytime soon? If this is not something that's been ongoing with you, then there's no particular reason why you should believe that you're going to start hallucinating aliens or you're going to start fantasizing about aliens talking to you in your head just because. So chances are, if you receive a telepathic communique that is distinct and clear and different from anything else you experience or have experienced up to now, chances are it's authentic. Again, there's no 100% guarantee, right? But nothing is 100% guaranteed in life. Not at the level that we're at, because we're in hell, right? We're in hell. The whole universe, physical universe, is designed to trap us and trick us and so on and so forth. So they will make efforts to make it clear. Let's put it that way. Jennifer says, "What are your thoughts on the moon? I've heard it's a satellite used to control humanity." Okay. So this is a conspiracy theory which takes a fundamental truth and twists it and corrupts it and elaborates it and weaves an elaborate conspiracy theory around it that's so believable and sounds so true, because at the heart of it is a kernel of truth, which is an absolute kernel of truth that's undeniable. And the ego knows this. So when you hear that conspiracy theory, you resonate with it, that there's some that sounds true, that sounds right. Why? Because the moon is a satellite of this planet, insofar as it used to be part of this planet. It was a chunk of this planet that was broken off billions of years ago. So it's related directly to this planet, and its regular mechanical orbit and its movement, its motion, regulates all of mechanical nature. The moon is the pendulum that sets the timing of all the mechanical works, all the gearing, that's all the the clockworks of mechanical nature on this planet. The moon governs all that, as the pendulum of a clock dictates all the clockworks inside the clock, right? So in that sense, the moon controls humanity. It controls our animal nature. Crime increases during full moons. Women's menstrual cycles are controlled by the moon. You have tides. You have um, all kinds of other aspects of mechanical nature that are governed by the moon and the cycles of the moon. So the nature of the intellectual hominid is in part controlled by the moon. But no, there is no malevolent alien or reptilian or other dimensional beings that are controlling humanity via an artificial satellite that they constructed called the moon, or any other conspiracy theory woven around beyond what we just explained, beyond what even science understands to one degree or another. Because even science knows that the moon controls the tides, and that the reproductive cycle of many creatures on this planet is tied to the moon and so forth. Yeah, we're talking about the mechanistic aspects of nature, but forget about conspiracy theories related to the moon. That's They're just distractions. They're just, taking you away from the more important question, which is, are you controlled by the moon? How much does the moon how much are you affected during the full moon? Because we can tell you 100% full disclosure, transparency and honesty is that we go through hell every month. We go through hell for 3 or 4 days while the moon goes through its full moon cycle. We go through hell. What do we mean by that? Well, you live with a demon, for God's sake. Our demon is never stronger than when it's a full moon, when it has access to the greatest amount, the highest intensity of conditioned light, because that's what moonlight is, and that's what a full moon provides. A full moon is conditioned light. It's reflected light, and it's reflected off gigantic pendulum of this gigantic body of the mechanistic aspects of nature. So all those moon worshippers out there, they're all worshiping mechanical nature. They're all worshiping essentially evil energy, right? Negative energy, mechanical consciousness. That's what they're worshiping. All those moon worshippers out there. And there's a lot of them. A lot of them. They worship the moon. And they feel the most powerful, and and a lot of Wiccans and so on will do their magic during the moon, or their cast their spells or make their potions or whatnot. They'll do it during the moon, because that's when the egos are strongest. Because egos work for mechanical nature. Egos are most empowered and most emboldened. So is our demon. So we go through hell every full moon. The 3 days, 4 days that it goes from waning moon or waxing moon to waning moon, or and then full moon. For that period of those days, we go through hell. We suffer all kinds of we get the most ridiculous cravings and desires to binge, and we are tempted in every conceivable possible way, and it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant. That's something that we have to live with. We might say a few words, although we've said this before. So, well, we'll say it again, just because we mentioned earlier how the Enlightened Humanities, how they travel and how they have their spacecraft are able to dematerialize and enter basically the fourth dimension. Now, in esotericism, we call that Jinn state. That's how Jesus walked on water, right? Jesus put himself into the fourth dimension. He appeared to be physical, but it was appearance only. And because in the fourth dimension, there's no mass, there's no gravity. So he walked on water. Easy. For an enlightened being, one who is able to take their physical body and put it into Jinn state. In that state, you can walk through walls. You are not bound by any of the laws of mechanical nature. Newtonian physics simply does not apply to you anymore, because there's no physicality. You are ethereal at that point. You are etheric. And if you have a craft that is in the fourth dimension, it becomes etheric. It still appears, but now it can make what appears to be 90-degree turns at plus Mach speeds, or it can stop on a dime or accelerate like at unbelievable speeds. Why? Because there's no G forces. There's no Newtonian physics. There's no mass. So when fighter pilots report that they see these alien crafts doing all these like crazy maneuvers at like ridiculous speeds, Mach 8, Mach 10 or whatever, and they're making, right-hand turns and everything else, and they're like, that's impossible. How can they possibly do that? Because they're thinking in physical terms. They can't fathom, they can't comprehend that what they are witnessing is an etheric vessel. It is a non-material, that craft and its occupants are in the fourth dimension, where there's no physicality, no gravity, no laws of physics, and no G forces. Just like everybody was amazed and awed when Jesus walked on water, because that's impossible. That's a miracle. Well, it is to someone who's trapped and landlocked in the third dimension. Some quick comments are coming in. So Benjamin says, Moana means ocean. Just searched it on Google. Okay. But that may mean ocean to Wikipedia or Google, but it means an aom. That's the hidden meaning. And remember that what we're talking about the ocean, we're talking about the ocean of the higher dimensions. So it's all an allegory anyway. Benjamin Raphael says the Mayans had a calendar based on the cycles of the moon and performed human sacrifices. Is there a connection between their lunar beliefs and the practice of human sacrifice? Probably yes. But remember that the Mayans who practiced that were degenerated. That's not the Mayan religion. That's not the Mayan calendar. That's not the Mayan long count calendar and the other calendars that they had. Well, they had they probably would have had a calendar of the moon for mechanical nature, but the connection between that and human sacrifices would have come later. That would have been in the late stage, when their civilization was already in steep decline. Because no civilization starts out sacrificing with human sacrifice. That's so. But the Mayans also, there was a reason why they did their human sacrifices. And that reason relates to the failing crops. And crops are part of mechanical nature, and they were trying to appease mechanical mother nature. They knew that the moon, being feminine, related to mechanical nature, they would have tried to do those sacrifices on those days when the prana, blood of those whose blood they were spilling, would have had the possibility of having the highest possible impact on the earth. So however they interpreted that, that's black magic. That's not something that I'm familiar with. So I can't tell you precisely, did they do human sacrifices on a full moon? Was that the best time, or was it a new moon, or was it this moon or that moon? I can't tell you that for certain because I'm not a black magician. So I don't know from their point of view when it's most auspicious to spill blood to try to appease mechanical nature. That's black magic. But definitely there's a connection because again, the moon governs mechanical nature. So anyone trying to uh, get the crops because basically what they were doing is um, they drained the soil, right, of its nutrients, and they didn't have the adequate knowledge to be able to replenish the soil by doing crop rotation or of fertilizing or anything else. So they essentially uh, used up, and the soil became no good. It wouldn't the crops would keep failing, and so but they did have knowledge of prana. They did have knowledge of energy, and they did have knowledge of um, of the requirement of the Earth to gain energy from humanity. So for them, spilling blood and sending that energy back into the Earth, they thought that that would be a way of rejuvenating and restoring the capacity of the soil to grow crops. That's the reason why the Mayans did the human sacrifices. But the problem is that they began with that, and it works for a while. But the problem is that you have to constantly keep increasing the dose of blood, because as you keep draining the earth, the soil just keeps failing more and more and more and more. You're kind of like it's kind of like uh, um, giving instead of giving somebody proper nutrition and proper sleep and proper right. You what you do is you give them doses of cocaine or speed to keep them going. Right, like it works, but you're you're artificially you're artificially injecting them with something that creates this artificial burst of energy. But then when they come down off that burst of energy, they're worse off than they were before. And so that's why at the very end, the Mayans at one point, there were stories of them sacrificing like hundreds of people at a time. Hundreds. So because this is what happens when you get on the downward spiral, but this is on a like on a civilization level, right? Like this is civilization level downward spiral. I hope that answers your question, Benjamin. Stuart says, I've seen plenty of humans walk into walls in gin state. Lots of tonic needed to remedy that. Um, and Benjamin says, oh, in Spanish. So Moana means ocean in Spanish. Benjamin Raphael says, thank you for clarifying that. Human sacrifices indeed happened before the fall of their civilization. Yeah, so this is what they were attempting to do. You can read more about this if you read Gurdjieff. Uh, um, he goes into a great deal of detail with regards to what he calls the being partok duty and the relationship between blood and prana and the planet and so on and so forth. Joanna says, modern televangelists begging for money, saying it's the Feast of Tabernacles or whatever other holy day. So give your best $1,000 seed and see God do this or that for you. They exploit the unlearned. It's degenerate as well. Well, the modern televangelist, it's not just the modern televangelist. Well, when you say modern, certainly the last 50 years, last 100 years, um, they're they're snake oil salesmen is what they are. That's so yeah. Um, who's the one that is it Joel Olstein? Is that it? He's the one who lives in that 28 million square foot mansion, something like that. Ridiculous. Has a helicopter pad, and he's the one that has the mega church that seats like 80,000 people. Yeah, well, he's obviously very good at begging for money. And no doubt he knows that if he does like you say some special fundraiser during a full moon, no doubt he knows how to exploit um, the mechanical, the height of conditioned light, the height of mechanical energy, the height of people living in fear and greed and envy. And so he knows how to exploit all that. Because if he didn't know how to exploit all that, he wouldn't be living in a 28 million square foot mansion with a helicopter pad. Because it's not by accident that he has all that money, right? And it's also not God's will that he have all that money. Um, you only need to look at the guy. You can just feel it. You can just see it. He's a well, is what it is. Bugaboo says yes. Joel Olstein. He says, I wonder what Jesus thinks of what preachers do in his name. Well, considering it's a spiritual crime, it's a crime against the law to sell the teachings, to charge money for the teachings. We're fairly certain that, and of course, the teachings that Joel Olstein gives are not exactly the authentic teachings anyway. They're hardly close, are they? So the Christ uh, laments all who make a big business out of, teaching this, teaching that. But on the other hand, the Christ also knows that karma is going to do its work. And so really, Christ laments those souls lost in ego who are exploiting and abusing the teachings for material gain and harming themselves and others in the process. The Christ laments and feels sorry for them because it knows full well what they are going to have to pay and how much they're going to have to pay, because there are no free rides in the universe. You don't get to this. Just think of this for a moment. The entire doctrine of abundance, which is trumpeted from the top of every skyscraper and every mountain and every bridge in the new age, that we live in an abundant universe, and the universe has unlimited abundance, and you can be a co-creator of your reality, and all you need to do is have the law of attraction, and you can manifest all your desires and all your fame and fortune and money and sex and everything else, because the universe wants you to live in abundance. There's no such thing as a cosmic ATM. And that is exactly the image, allegory, symbol, whatever you want to, that was used in The Secret. They say, imagine when you go to an ATM and you take money out of an ATM, and just imagine where you can just keep going to this ATM and keep bringing money out of this ATM. That's what the universe is. That was, I remember Proctor with his big eyes, his big hypnotic eyes. That's abundance. That's yours. That's The Secret. But we live in a universe of balance. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If you go to that so-called cosmic ATM and make a withdrawal, what are you paying back to the universe? What are you giving back? Because money is just a symbol for the mutual exchange of energies. So that whole the universe is abundant bullshit is one of the most incessant, insidious, diabolical beliefs and dogmas of the new age. It is 100% black magic. It's 100% there to get people to become trapped in one of the aspects of the Great Awakening, to actually sit there manifesting their desires and practicing black magic in order to keep withdrawing from the universe. without doing anything, just for their own self-satisfaction, their own, whatever. But karma is the great law of balancing. There's no, there is no, and there is no hiding from karma. There's no avoiding karma. You can't swindle your way out of karma. The universe will balance, and you will be balanced. You will have to pay what you owe. What you took, somehow, one way, shape, or form, needs to be restored in a universe of balance. Jennifer says, that's true. She says, I live in Ohio. Some of the mid to later Mayans traveled up the Mississippi River and built effigy mounds like Serpent Mound right near me. There are other mounds near Columbus, Ohio that have a very dark energy. You can feel it there at the sites such as Newark, Ohio, and there is an underground chamber where possibly the sacrifices were performed. The oldest site, the Serpent Mound, does not have that energy. It's a higher vibrational energy that you can feel through your... It got cut off there. There's a limit, Jennifer, to how long a message you can put in on StreamYard. So you've got to try to make your comments a little bit shorter, or put them as several comments as opposed to just one big one. So we don't know if you can recover the rest of that and then post it, but it got cut off, as you can see. Stuart says, this chat reminded me of the Latin root of corruption. Cor is of the heart, so corruption is the rupture of the heart. Yes, core would be the heart, wouldn't it? Core, as in like the core of the planet, the heart of the planet. So yeah, corruption. See, we never put two and two together on that one. So thanks for that. Benjamin Raphael says, it's unfortunate that modern society is preoccupied with entertainment and seems to have lost its concern for truth. When I think of mega churches, it reminds me of the countless individuals who practice a religion only to be misled by corrupt businessmen posing as teachers. Well, that's it, isn't it? Because the mega church really is, it really is entertainment in that sense. It's like it's an event. It's an experience, but it's like a rock concert. It's like combining religion with like a rock concert, or like a political rally or something, right? Where it's, as you said, there's an entertainment aspect that comes into play. In the same way that 24-hour news television it's like infotainment. Yes, it's news, but it's sensationalized. And that's what we're after. We don't want the solemn, meditative, contemplative, humble services of the Eastern Orthodoxy or Roman Catholic Church, or perhaps a Protestant or a Lutheran or whatever kind of service. No, we want the charismatic, bombastic, exciting, revelatory, arms flailing, people singing, tears flowing, this hyperbolic, emotional, explosive, eruptive, sensationalized so-called spiritual experience every Sunday. Like, and we have to be honest, it's a slippery slope because just like anybody, we can be moved to tears by a Southern Baptist minister and his gospel choir singing. There's something very enticing about that. There's something very seductive about a Southern Baptist minister, slamming his fist on the pulpit and yelling and screaming and having this emotional outburst of so-called faith, and then having that translated through the gospel choir and the gospel soloist, the gospel solo vocalist with the choir in the background. It can be very moving. It can be very uplifting, and it can be very seductive, and makes you break down in tears, or makes you want to like cry, scream out with joy, and carry on and sing along and all this kind of, right. There's something very powerful about it. And wherever there's power, wherever there's energy, there's opportunity for exploitation. There's an opportunity for corruption. Coming back to what Stuart just said a moment ago, okay? Quite literally now, let's contemplate this. What Stuart said here, core is the heart. Corruption is a rupture of the heart. So when Benjamin talks about the mega churches, and I'm talking about the Southern Baptists and the gospel choir, and these people having these religious experiences, right? And they're crying, and they're having these religious, hyperbolic, sensationalized, over the top, emotional experiences. Very, very powerful, very moving, right? Is it possible their heart is rupturing? Is it possible that they're being corrupted in the moment? That spirit and that love and that passion for Christ is being corrupted and exploited, being used to serve more base animal desires? It's difficult to say. It really it's this is one of those situations where it's very dangerous to point fingers and cast judgment on others, because uh, there's no doubt in my mind that the women and men who have devoted their life every Sunday to go and be part of a gospel choir, and they practice hours every week, the hymns that they're going to be singing on Sunday, that they don't do that out of pure self-interest, and that they are people with that level of devotion and compassion and love of God and love of Christ and love of their neighbor and love of their community. They're coming from a good place. But when you whip up all of that energy and fire and emotion and everything else, it's rife for exploitation. So at the very same time, just as I don't fault, you know, 79,000 out of those 80,000 people in Joel Osteen's megachurch, I don't fault them for being there. Because if you got each and every one of them one-on-one in an interview, you'd probably find lovely and caring and giving people in each and every one of them. And they really well and truly believe that they're being touched by God and that Joel Osteen is some kind of magical messenger of God, that he is able to move all of these people to have these experiences, to feel like they've been touched by Jesus, but they've been touched by Christ. So it's, Benjamin, we hear where you're coming from on this one, but this is just like anybody who gets caught up in any cult. It's really, we have to be really walk a careful line here, right? And this is where you're coming from when you say individuals want to practice religion only to be misled by corrupt businessmen posing as teachers. Corrupt businessmen posing as teachers is one thing, but really we're talking about a black magician posing as a minister, posing as a priest, a black magician posing as a white magician, right? A demon posing as an angel, a demon posing as a messenger of the Lord, a messenger of God. That's what you have in a Joel Osteen. Make no mistake. Businessmen and teachers, that's a different level. We're talking really high, really, really high levels of deception, meaning really low levels of being. That's, what we're on the level of, because it takes tremendous skill as a black magician to have that kind of power, psychological power to manipulate others in that way. We see it in musicians all the time, but they have the benefit of having that powerful music. And I'm sure Joel Osteen uses music as well, and I'm sure Joel Osteen has gospel choirs as well. And he uses music and hymns and everything else, right? But again, it's the whole metaphysical science of the amphitheater and the collecting of all that energy. And once you've got all that energy activated and flowing, that's power, and power corrupts, and power can be exploited, and that's what's happening. It's really what it comes down to. Mugaboo22 says, imagine people thinking Oprah can give anything really useful. I think if we look to these people as spiritual teachers, we also are to blame for the lack of intuition. Well, it's it's fair to say that we all have to take responsibility for our own well-being, and we can't just point fingers and blame others. At the same time, if we are very weak or we've been raised a certain way, we don't know about looking within for answers, we don't know about intuition, or we've never been taught what intuition really is, then again, it's let he who is without sin cast the first stone. In our book, we write in our life how I myself was also duped, and not so much duped by others. I was duping myself. My own mind was coming up with stuff, and that I was believing, and that I was falling for. So I've been conned and tricked and duped by so many so often, and I always had a fairly strong intuition. So because I've been able to be duped and conned and had and taken advantage of and tricked throughout my life, maybe I'm more forgiving of others who fall into cults of personality and fall into religious organizations that are run by black magicians, because I know how easy it is to be duped, to be conned. And I've had it done to me so often, and uh I've fallen for it so often that I guess I just can't cast stones at those people. I feel for them. I feel badly for them. I'm not going to point my fingers and say, "Oh, you stupid, gullible, this, that, and the other thing," because that would make me a hypocrite. And I just can't. I cannot stand hypocrisy. I cannot stand for it. It's one of the first things as a child that I became freakishly aware of was the hypocrisy of my of people who were close to me, and it is something that just simply I we just can't abide by it. We can't. It's lamentable. It's complicated. There's lots going on, but not everybody is at the same level, and we can't expect everybody to perform at the level that we're at. Like, not everybody's a Buddha, so why do you expect everybody to behave like a Buddha? It's not fair to expect that of them. Would you expect a child? Would you expect a child to have the same level of responsibility as an adult? No. The vast majority of people on this planet are children, spiritually speaking. From the perspective of consciousness, they're infants. And it is really easy to steal candy from a baby, right? It's really easy to take advantage of a child. That's why they need to be protected. So, while we recognize, yes, everybody is responsible for themselves to one degree or another, at the other at this at, on the other hand, uh, we have to be a little charitable and a little bit merciful and recognize that these are children in the hands of trained professionals, of career black magicians, and yeah, that's all we have to. That's all we'll say about that. Jennifer says, "I think the Serpent Mound, being the oldest of the sites, was built by earlier Mayans that weren't sacrificing humans." So the Serpent Mound is an interesting phenomenon because, of course, it's a representative of the Divine Mother Kundalini. So, what was taking place in and around or on that Serpent Mound, we may never know. But if it was worshiping the Divine Mother and it was doing so in an upright, positive way, that would explain the very powerful energies surrounding it. Whereas other mounds might be not so much. Joanne says the entertainment aspect is intentional to hypnotize. She says, she continues, they hypnotize the senses and mind in order to disengage discernment and open the subconscious to their suggestions. It's a slippery slope indeed. And this is, again, you know, when you say the hypnotize the senses and mind in order to disengage and discern and open to the subconscious to their suggestions, all of that, but it's also like we could go back to the Baptist in the gospel choir or what have you, right? When, or if you just, even if you go to a Catholic church and they have the pipe organ and somebody's singing in falsetto voice, or you're singing the hymns, and if you allow yourself and you give yourself to that moment completely and freely, and you feel your heart opens up and you become completely vulnerable, and it's like you can say all of that is being done deliberately in order for them to be able to be exploited and to be able to, for you to implant suggestions, et cetera, et cetera. um, but this is this is what happens. This is at risk to all of us at any time when we allow ourselves to be open and receptive and vulnerable. When we open our hearts and our hearts open up, like we become childlike in that sense, and we give ourselves to the moment. I mean, and so there's a beautiful aspect to this. There's something really beautiful going on. It's just that the Black Lodge is so overwhelmingly powerful in the age that we are in, and they're so determined to fulfill their mechanical role, their mechanical programming, is they can't resist that kind of outpouring of an opening and someone opening themselves up like that. It's like it's they can't resist it. It's like moths to a flame. It's like hornets to honey. It's they just they're just drawn to it. It's literally like putting an alcoholic in a liquor store. He can't help himself. But it doesn't necessarily make the underlying opening and making oneself vulnerable. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's just that bad actors will take advantage of it. It's, in other words, when you're naive, guess what? People are going to come and take advantage of that. And if you put yourself in an open and vulnerable and place of naivete, like childlike innocence, they just the parasites, they come to feed, like the vampires, they come to feed. Because there's nothing ego likes more than to feed on the innocent and the childlike and the pure. And to twist, tempt, and corrupt all that is pure and good and of the light. Stewart says, corruption in the legal system has given corporations the legal status of people. It seems to me there is an illusion of caring coming from the heartless. Well, that's certainly true. That's certainly true. Because corporations have no heart. They're a mechanical entity. Um, Joanne says it's called eurythmial. Eurythmial is seductive. It is meant to be seductive. We're not sure exactly what you're referring to when you say eurythmial now. When you say the entertainment aspect. Okay, so the entertainment aspect is eurythmial. It is okay. So the entertainment aspect, yes, we agree, but we're not necessarily talking about the entertainment aspect of it. There is an entertainment aspect to things that, like you say, is seductive and it is meant to be seductive. Okay, we get that. But look, Beethoven's music, it's beautiful and it's moving. Would you call Beethoven's music entertaining? Would you call it eurythmial? There's a fine line here we have to define, because we may be talking about two different things, because eurythmial to us, entertainment to us is entertaining in the mind and entertaining in the sentimental heart. We're not talking about the superior heart center or the superior mental center. So we have to get our terms straight, because a horror movie is entertaining, right? A lot of what Hollywood pumps out, violent movies and so on, is entertaining. Okay, but it's not the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven. There are a lot of people who will go and watch the Ninth Symphony or a Mozart opera or a Wagner opera, and they'll get nothing out of it except they'll pass the time and they think it's entertaining. But it would be wrong to call Mozart's opera eurythmial or Wagner eurythmial in this sense, because it's not in the same sense. That's just the lower version, the mechanical nature, the egoic version of what only the superior heart mind can experience on that higher level. But what we're saying is, on that higher level, you can be exploited at that higher level if you're not careful, if you're too naive. It's really important, but you make that distinction that you don't that because if you say that you can't have, for example, if you go to a Sufi mosque and you experience zikr, which is the Sufi dances of love, and there's a with a dervish turning in the middle, and you're have the music and the chanting, Allah 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 which is basically Allah Allah is love, Allah is love, and you got your arms around one another and you're dancing and chanting while a dervish is swirling in the middle and creating this vortex of energy, and it's completely in the context of um, of putting all of your chakras into activity and so on and so forth, right? Would you call that form of worship entertainment? Is that eurythmial? Or we have to get our terms correct and understand where we're drawing the line here. Are there some people perhaps who go to the Sufi mosque and just partake in zikr for the pure physicality and the chanting and the losing themselves in the chanting of that process? Maybe, sure. In the same way that there's lots of people who watch Moana and don't get any of the esoteric stuff out of it, like all the people who watch Star Wars and don't get any of the esoteric stuff out of it. But that doesn't mean that the esoteric truth isn't in it, or that it's been reduced down to the lowest common denominator, because this is how the lowest common denominator experiences it. So when you say it's designed to be seductive, yeah, Hollywood designs things to be seductive. Joel Osteen designs his services to be seductive. Cult leaders design their things to be seductive. Black magicians design things to be seductive. But Rumi did not write his poetry to be seductive. It can be, because people can be seduced by it. But that's their own egoic reaction to it. So it's a very uh, and believe us, we spent many years, because we went through drama. We acted on stage, we acted in film. We went through this whole becoming an artist thing and interacting with artists and being in different plays and this, that, and the other thing, and studying the theater and studying Shakespeare and performing Shakespeare, which is a completely different thing from just studying it or reading it for that matter. And so there's the whole question of between what is entertainment, what is art, and what is high art, and what are the things that are going on, and when does black magic become white magic, and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of nuance in there, a lot of nuance, and it's something, frankly, that the intellectual mind cannot work out, because the intellectual mind, the rational mind, is mechanical, and truth is not mechanical. It's not rational. It's at a different level. Uh, Stuart says, "Wow, Mayans pulling hearts out." Okay, wow, Mayans pulling hearts out during sacrifices is modern day equivalent of being the mega energy traps in religion and entertainment for some to feed on that energy and hold place in abundant hierarchy. Okay, we're gonna have to read that again to see if we can understand what you're saying. Wow, Mayans pulling hearts out during sacrifices. Is modern day equivalent being the mega energy traps in religion and entertainment for some to feed on that energy and hold place in abundant hierarchy? Uh no. No, the two things are not equivalent. The Mayans were performing their sacrifices for a very specific reason because their crops were failing. And they were trying to appease mechanical nature by sacrificing and putting prana literally back into the ground, back into the earth, so that they could get another yield, that they could get another season of crops out of the earth. Uh, the the mega energy traps in religion and entertainment for some to feed on and energy and hold play. That's a different phenomenon. That's a different kind of phenomenon. That's a cult of personality. It's a cult. It's just basically a cult. And yeah, and all of the energy flows up to the leader of the cult, who then transforms that energy into money, into power. In Germany in the 1930s, we can't say the name because we might get the live stream might get penalized by Google. But the certain fellow in 30s in Germany was using the same skills, the same tactics in order to what? To do that to create that what you just called a mega energy trap, but it wasn't in religion and entertainment, it was in politics. And it was in nationalism. And where did and how it and that energy was harnessed to do what? To make Germany great again, to build Germany up. Because Germany was in a hell like that individual rose to power when Germany was suffering terribly through the Great Depression and through all of the reparations it had to pay following the First World War. So Germany was down and out. Germany was in the gutter. It was one of the poorest, worst off nations in all of Europe. Well, that individual was able to come in and take all of that negative, depressed energy and harness it and direct it towards a vision of prosperity, a vision of strength, a vision of power, a vision of potential, and a vision of superiority. And he was able to transmute and transform all that negative, latent, depressed energy, and he helped that entire nation rise up, and all of its scientists and all of its agricultural and its engineers, its chemists, all of these people were able to achieve extraordinary things while under the leadership of that particular individual. It just so happens that with that incredible foundation, which that nation was able to muster, all that potential, all that energy, all that know-how, all that ingenuity and imagination and 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 passion and cooperation for one another and for uh, the longing to see that vision of a great and powerful Germany realized. Well, that incredible locomotive that was now barreling down the track, they they stuck a howitzer on the front of it, and they said, now we're going to exploit the power and the energy and everything that we have mustered up, that we have that we have churned up and transmuted out of this depressed nation. We're now going to take this, and now they twisted it and corrupted it and turned it against the world. But you see, had that individual not been corrupted by the Black Lodge, that individual could have potentially raised Germany up from the doldrums, from the hell that it was in following the Second World War and the Great Depression. He could have raised Germany up to be a new golden beacon of light for the rest of the world to be in awe of and to be inspired by. He could have created like a veritable utopia in Germany of science, of learning, of music, of art, of philosophy, of all of this. If all of that energy had been directed toward a true vision of leadership and guidance the world to follow, instead of a vision of a superior Germany that would force itself upon the rest of the world and make the world acquiesce and bow and bend the knee and fall under their the banner of conquest, the banner of the Third Reich, right? But everything that he was doing, if you look at interviews of people at that time, and even people following the war, after the war, and you look at what so many people had to say, and that individual was Germany's savior before he took them down the road to conquest and empire building in the Second World War. But everything he did up until that point, he received nothing but praise for, barring all the anti-Semitic activities and whatnot and so forth. But even that, we have to take in context, prior to the war itself, that all the socialist and communist movements in Germany at the time, a lot of that was promoted by certain ethnic groups. So there's a muddy history here that's been erased from the history books. We can't talk about it openly because no doubt we'll get chastised for it and we'll be branded and canceled and everything else. The fact of the matter is that, as we described before, energy is energy, and it is inherently neutral until it is applied. It is the end result that matters, and that depressed nation was built up back out of nothing, and it could have been a very, very different story had it not gone the way it did. It could have been a very different story. And if we had such leaders in the world today with such ability, but benevolent, with benevolent intentions, then the world today might look like a very different place. Unfortunately, power corrupts. It tends to corrupt. And because once someone gets a taste of it, it's very, very, very tempting. And we've told you that we write about our experience in Japan when we failed this test. And when it was revealed to us that the line that separates Christ from Antichrist is not this huge gulf. It's not the Grand Canyon. The line that separates Christ from Antichrist is a hairline. The line that separates angel from demon is a hairline. Because power is power, and all it takes to slip from one side to the other is a slip on a banana peel. It's one moment of impropriety. It's all it takes. There is no vast gulf between good and evil, even though we talk about in political terms, we talk about the far left and the far right and these so-called extremists. Well, okay, but that's on the political spectrum. What they don't tell you is those two extremists are actually side by side. But that's another discussion, perhaps. Okay, Eric Cullen, in response to Jennifer Christie, he said, it's not. Presumably, this is about the Serpent Mound, perhaps. And he also said, in response to Benjamin Raphael, he says, of course there is. The lunar moon is also associated with black magic, etc. We covered that a little bit earlier as well. Mugaboo said, yes, me too. I was hypnotized by New Age teachers and teachings. However, I am still to blame somehow. Okay, no, fair enough. Fair enough. But if you accept blame, that's one thing, right? Accept blame, right? That's fine for you to accept blame for yourself. Just recognize when you decide that you're going to point fingers at others and tell them what they need to be blamed for. That's all. That's all it's about. Stuart says this sounds like a chakra rape when done by the Black Lodge. Chakra rape? Kamal Manzuki says hornets to honey is a great turn of phrase. Well, we're glad you think so. We felt it appropriate at the time. Benjamin says, earlier you mentioned that we should approach enlightened humanity with humility and ask them to grant us wisdom. This reminded me of how Moses approached the burning bush. He had to remove his sandals and come to the bush as himself in a pure state. Then he received the 10 Commandments. The removing of the sandals is because he was standing on hallowed ground. And what that means is you remove the physical vessel that you use to traverse crude reality. You don't enter into you don't bring your corporeal baggage with you when you enter into the temple. So when you enter into the company of the burning bush, you are on hallowed ground. You are on sacred ground. It's a sacred space, and you don't defile the sacred space with your crude animal self, your ego, your physicality, etc., etc. So your pride, your greed, your desires, you leave those at the door. And so humility gives us this. I say, I'm not worthy, right? So Lord, I'm not worthy to receive, but only say the word and I shall be healed. That approach, that attitude communicates to any being of a superior level, whether they're an enlightened humanity, whether they're your innermost being, your divine mother, an angel that you're praying to, one of the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, doesn't matter, Samael, by taking on that attitude, and by attitude we mean that from a metaphysical state of being as opposed to just a mental concept. When you position yourself humbly, recognizing that as this mortal being, you are unworthy, and you know that. But if you would only be granted the wisdom, if you would only be granted a boon, if they would only say the word of God, the word is truth, then that word you will use to heal yourself. So Lord, I'm not worthy to receive you, but only say the word of God, and I shall be healed. As I humble myself before you, I know that I'm not worthy, but if you grant me your wisdom, rest assured that I will use it to make myself, I will do everything in my power to earn the worthiness of it, that I will put it to good use. I will earn the right to have received it. I will use it and make myself worthy of it. Give me a chance to prove that I am worthy, but I can't show that, I can't prove that unless I receive the blessing from you, the gift that I know I'm not worthy to receive as I am now. But grant it to me and allow me to make good use of it so that I can become worthy of it. This is a very strange and subtle paradox, yeah? I'm not worthy, but I have the potential to be worthy, but not unless you give it to me in ahead of time. It's like when you go to a bank, ask for a loan to start a business and say, I know I have no money, I have no collateral, I have nothing but this business plan. I'm not worthy of the $1,000 I'm asking from you. But if you give me that $1,000, I will put it to good use and I'll come back in 12 months with $2,000 and I'll be able to pay you back with interest. This is what that statement means. I am not worthy to receive you, but only say the word and I shall be healed. It's like you're asking for a bank loan from a bank manager, and you got to sell him on your business plan. And you say, I know that I'm not worthy of this money, but give me a chance to prove myself and pay you back with interest so that you're making a wise investment. People like to say, money this and money that, and money is the root of all evil, and money, 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 money. We can learn so much about spirituality if we strip away all the bullshit and all the degenerated aspects of money and finance and economics and capitalism, and recognize that money is a symbol of the mutual exchange of energy. Because whether it's enlightened beings or anyone who's going to spend time and effort and energy on us, they're making an investment. They're making an investment. They're going to do that because they have the hope that we will take their boons, their blessings, their gifts, and use them and pay them forward and multiply them, enhance them, expand them. And that anything that we receive as a blessing from divinity, we will pay it forward. And that by paying it forward, we will generate dividends. So that their investment in us will pay off with dividends in the world. Benjamin says, that is a very good explanation, which relates to the parable of the talents, which tells of a which tells of a master who was leaving his house to travel and, before leaving, entrusted his property to his servants, according to the abilities of each man. One servant received 5 talents, the second received 2, and the third received only 1. Thank you. And isn't this also the parable where he returns and one servant has grown the share that he was given, or that's a different parable where one man was given so much and then the other man was given so much, and then or one son was given something and the other son was given something, and the one son doubled or tripled or quadrupled the yield, and the other one squandered what he was given, or only returned the same of what he was given. And then, so there's a parable about that as well. So blessed be he that takes what he is given, and yeah, no. So Benjamin says, yeah, it's the same parable. Yeah, okay, okay. So and then the whole point of it is, yeah, each is given to their abilities, but also um, each is judged according to what they were able to do with what they were given. So it's the same thing like our when we in our book or in our video that we talk about Seek Aum, and we talk about receiving your gifts, right? Your sacred gifts from your innermost being, and doing something with those gifts. You have to bring those gifts to the world. And the difference between some who use those gifts for their own ends, right? And we were talking earlier about the musicians and the entertainers. Like there is absolutely no question in our mind that Joel Osteen, if he wanted to, he could be a tremendous spiritual leader in our time. He has the ability. It's just he doesn't have the will. He has the ill will to do what he does, right? It's like our short mustache German fellow that we were speaking about earlier. He had the ability. He was he was one of the candidates to become the avatar of Aquarius, but he was seduced by the Black Lodge and he fell. But he had the ability. He had the potential. I mean, he was unquestionable how he was able to raise an entire nation up and create so much hope and prosperity and knowledge and ability and capacity simply by giving these people a vision of greatness to strive for. Unfortunately, as we said, it turned out he made that vision of greatness not so great, turned it against the world. But there's all of us, these gifts that we have the potential to release them on the world to produce dividends, to produce a return on investment. That's every hero goes on that journey. Even Moana and Maui, they take that journey of hardship of the onto the wide open and unforgiving sea. And they have to find Maui's hook, and they have to face that giant crab, and then they have to face the great lava demon and everything else. Why are they doing all that? Because they've been called to do so, and also because they know if they succeed in their goal, they know that it's worth it, because all of that suffering, all of that hardship, all of that sacrifice and struggle and overcoming obstacles and everything else that we face in the alm of life, if we stick with it, if we carry it through, and we keep the faith, then we trust that in the end it will produce dividends. And that's the whole spiral home. We go into hell and we endure all the hardship and struggle and everything else because we trust that if we trust the alm of life, that the nature of a spiral is that if you descend and you keep going and struggle and come all the way back up, you will be in a higher point than when you left, because that's what a spiral is. That's what a spiral is. It cannot produce anything other than that. If you're talking about, right, if you start from, from where you are and you go down and you come back, you're going to end up in a higher place than when you began. That's a absolute scientific fact of the alm of life on the upward spiral of evolution. On the downward spiral of devolution, it's the opposite. If you keep giving in and indulging and letting go and blah blah blah, and you know what I mean, then you're gonna go around and around, and it's every time you do it, it's going to be worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And we all know what the downward spiral is. We've all experienced it in one way, shape, or form. These are de facto aspects of nature, which is why the spirals are everywhere and define everything. When it comes to growth or it comes to destruction, it doesn't matter. It's only a question of degree and time. All right. So to recap what we were talking about earlier, meditate, pray to your innermost, pray to your divine mother, visualize and just speak very plainly, honestly, openly. What is it that you intend to do? And request guidance on, how you should go about where you should go in order, if you've been granted an audience, if you've been granted a rendezvous. And be specific with them. Like, be specific. Say, I'm here to do this in my life. I want to be able to, I want to be able to do XYZ, and I would like your guidance on how to go about doing that. If you can offer me some guidance, or perhaps you can instruct me or inform me how your humanity overcame these challenges. I would like to learn from you who have walked before, right? Which is the definition of sensei in Japanese. He who has walked before, who he has come before. You again, you have to have a good reason, and you have to be able to sell them on that reason, but you can't pitch it like a pitch man. You have to do it 100% openly and honestly, because they can read your mind. And they can read your emotions. They know if you're trying to bullshit them or if you're trying to bullshit yourself. So don't do it. Don't do it. But if you are earnest and honest, and you are going to pay it forward, and you are going to make good use of it, and you do earn their trust, then there is a very good chance they will be in touch with you, and that they will make contact, and that they will tell you where to go, when to be there, and to relax and not to be afraid, and make sure that you're alone and nobody else is, around, and they will come and make contact. And what happens from there, it's wide open. We can't tell you what's going to happen next. That's for you to find out. All we can do is point the way. You've got to walk it. Right? You can point the way down this path. You have to walk it. But 100% for sure, there is no reason to be afraid. There are no malevolent aliens, period. There are none. They are incapable of malevolence. Any malevolent being like ourselves, anywhere in the universe, are trapped on the planets that they are on. Because anybody who's malevolent is materialistic and mechanical and bound to those laws of mechanical nature, as we were describing earlier. You will never become a spacefaring humanity if you are bound to mechanical nature. Impossible. For the very reasons that all of science fiction has been struggling with since the advent of the genre. Oh, they put people in freezing chambers and hibernation and everything else because it takes 80 years to get from here to there. It doesn't take 80 years to cross the galaxy when you're in the fourth dimension. It only takes 80 years in an illusory physical dimension. But you don't actually traverse all that distance if you're in the fourth dimension. And you can travel faster than light if you're in the fourth dimension, because time is an illusion. And everything that we experience in terms of E equals mc squared is all the relativity of time. Time doesn't go anywhere. Time is in the 0 point. Light doesn't go anywhere. Light doesn't travel. There is no such thing as the speed of light because light doesn't go anywhere. Light is the 0 point. Light is the absolute. And if you can wrap your head around that, you can't really. So, but if you meditate on that and you can comprehend that in meditation, then a lot of the alien technology will suddenly become self-evident to you. It's self-evident to them, as most of metaphysical science becomes self-evident when you realize that all of physical reality and all of physics, all the laws governing this so-called physical reality are completely illusory and apply only to the materium, and that the materium is an illusion. That's why they called it Maya. So all of that aside, if you really want, and if you believe, as we began with the preface and talking about Moana and the seafaring, spacefaring peoples and all this kind of stuff, if you really believe that humanity has a birthright to restore and has a potential to be a enlightened humanity once more, then uh, then that's an opportunity for you to express that and express your longing for assistance from enlightened humanities who have proven themselves to be thus and know what it takes to be thus. Well, you can just ask that you want to learn from them. You know, and then they'll respond to that. They'll respond to that. And certainly, if you're successful in having such an encounter, we would all be very much interested in hearing about it. Does anybody have any more questions or comments or anything at all to share, or before we call it a day? Because we're just roughly 10 minutes shy of the 3-hour mark. Also, we hope that the internet connection has been pretty good for the rest of today. We didn't see too many problems on our end, although there was a lot of lagginess with StreamYards on our end. We don't know what the issue was today. Maybe it was our internet connection. We're not sure, but maybe next week we'll reset the computer, or reset the router or something, and maybe we'll do that once we get off the live stream, so we don't run into that problem again. So again, any more questions or comments? Because if not, then we'll call it a day. Okay. Azazel asks, how are angels really different from so-called aliens? Well, they're very different. For starters, they don't have physical bodies. They're not. So aliens are not angels. Aliens are not masters yet. They're not resurrected masters. They're just beings like we are. Except they have a lot less ego than we do. So they're able to exist and know the supernal worlds, and they're able to visit the physical world, essentially. But they're not attached to it. In other words, aliens are souls with physical bodies, not, as we are, physical bodies that think we have souls, or that think that believe that we might have souls. If that's the way. Now, angels don't have physical bodies anymore. They don't. They're on a completely different level. They're done with their 108 lifetimes. In other words, they're beyond Buddhas. angels and seraphim, and then the archangels are the cosmo creators. They're at another level, right? So there are levels and levels and levels and levels of being. I mean, we're not like aliens are just they're better than us, but they're not angels yet. Angels don't need spacecraft. Aliens still need spacecraft to traverse the cosmos. Aliens don't, or sorry, angels don't need spacecraft. Does that answer your question, Azazel? Do you want to follow up, or did we answer that? Maybe to put it another way, uh, monads go through their evolution. Okay, so as Azazel says, sure, now that's quite enough. Okay, um, we're just going to say that monads go through their evolution, right? The mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and then there's the supernal worlds, the supernal kingdom. So there's angels, there's seraphim, there's devas. I'm sure we're not getting the order right. Then there's archangels, and then there's levels of cosmo creators above that. So if you conceptualize all of reality, all of existence as a game, and that there are levels to this game, that the goal and the way in which you play the game, as it were, the goal of any specific uh, uh, game, level game changes slightly as it relates to that particular level. So your tasks are different, right? And if you played video games in the past, this is a feature of a lot of video games where you might have a driving level or a flying level or a swimming level, right? Where the movements and the actions that you do are dependent on the level that you're playing. And some levels you have to do, some levels this is your goal is to do, and some levels you have a different goal that you need to do. Even if you think in terms of Diablo, and when you were playing the first Diablo, going deeper and deeper into the dungeon, there were these types of levels, this type of terrain with these types of monsters, and then there's the lava level as you were going closer and closer into hell, into Inferno. Then there was the levels were changing. Now in Diablo, like the basic underlying goals were the same on each level, but perhaps the monsters you were fighting and everything else, they also changed level to level. In other words, different levels changed the game to one degree or another. And that's very much true with us and our level of being. The higher we get, the more the different the game becomes. And what used to be difficult is now nothing compared to what we're facing now. And it's always that way. So there's always a challenge. There are always obstacles that need to be faced and overcome, because that's, again, according to the alm of life. Life is baffling. Reality is baffling. The game has to be baffling. It has to be challenging. Otherwise, there's no point to playing it. And there's no way to develop and grow if we're not challenged, if we don't face obstacles. If you don't lift weights, you're not going to build muscle. If you don't practice the chopsticks, you're not going to become a master pianist. It's the same thing at every single level. If an angel doesn't do XYZ, right? Be a guardian angel for someone, or give blessings, or hear prayers, or intervene in preventing accidents from happening, or whatever the tasks that angels are tasked with, they have to do that work. They have to do those tasks. And the more they do them, the better they get at them. The better angels they become. and so on and so forth. So this is at every level, and of course, archangels and cosmo creators, right? You have to be in charge of a whole planet now, and then eventually a whole solar system, and then eventually a whole galaxy, like Oremus. Oremus is the cosmo creator that's at the center of the supercluster of stars at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. There's a being there who's responsible for everything that happens in this galaxy. And his name is Oremus. So, whatever we think that we're going through now, and whatever we think we're doing in this game, at this level, we haven't even begun to play yet. That's the God honest truth. We're still muddling our way through the tutorial. And yeah, as Azazel says, angels, archangels, seraphim, cherubim, I think. Yeah, so we can never remember the order in which these things. Regardless, there are levels and levels and levels and levels and levels. And as Azazel adds, our crown princess do have an emblem of the seraph, closely connected to the Freemasons and so on. Well, there you have it. There you go. But they're not aliens. That's the point. They're not aliens. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? I'll give you a minute to type because I know some of you, especially because of the lag and everything else, will give it a couple minutes. But we might as well start. Begins our thank yous and goodbyes. Thank you so much for being with us. We apologize again for the technical difficulties. We thank you for your patience, for putting up with all of that. And we hope that you found today informative. And as Azazel says, no, they're not aliens, but they sure have powers. Yeah, but I mean, but that goes with everybody who's enlightened or awakening. So that's a different thing. Benjamin says, was a good one. Take care. Stuart says, serendipity brought a unicycle to work this week. uh, Azazel says, we think that the upcoming queen will make some interesting changes. Oh yes, the okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that in her seraph. Stuart says, peace be with you all. Benjamin says, hang on a second. There it is. Benjamin says, thank you, sir. Today's topic is very serendipitous for me as well. Well, we're glad. We're happy that all of you could be here today. And again, we hope you got something out of today. If you haven't seen Moana, you can watch it online. You can watch it for free on YouTube, actually. Just do a search for Moana full film. And people have created a playlist where they've broken the film up into like 54 parts or 34 parts. And you can watch the whole film part by part by part on YouTube if you haven't seen it yet. It's a beautiful film. The songs are catchy, and it's entertaining. It's really entertaining. It was John Lasseter was still at Disney when they did this. So it was back in 2016. So it's not woke. It's none of this new crap that Disney's been shitting out the last few years. It's actually one of the last really good Disney animations, and the esoteric value of it is tremendous. So you may find it speaking to you as it does to us, and as it has spoken to many others as well. So again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for being here. We hope to see you next week. Hopefully we'll be feeling a little bit better, and then we'll be getting on back on the hamster wheel and churning out more of these videos, the short form videos that we've been posting that I'm hopefully you've been watching and sharing. So keep an eye out for that, and we hope you have a great week, and we hope to see you again next week. And as always, thank you, and inferential peace. Take care, everyone. And let's see how well this little video goes. This is a lot shorter, so hopefully it'll go better. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.